This is Chapter 10, The End of the Road, Part 1, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Before heading to the command control room, Ellie made a final stop at the lab. Today's test would be a culmination of her life's work, the definitive achievement of a career spanning over 4 decades. For over 40 years, this lab on the moon had been her second home. It was here that she and her team had pushed the boundaries of physics, refining the propulsion technology that had expanded the reach of humanity's generational ships. Here they had fought through setbacks and breakthroughs alike, driven by the unyielding belief that their work could secure humanity's future. And now, after decades of relentless effort, the final test had arrived. The entire lab team was already assembled when Ellie arrived. At 70 years old, she knew she had to pace herself carefully. She wasn't as young as she once was, but her mind was as sharp as ever. This was a day that demanded her full strength, and she had made sure that she was well rested, or, at least, as well rested as she could be. They all understood what was at stake. She called a quick final meeting to ensure that every team member was prepared to capture and analyze every last bit of data from the upcoming test. One by one, her team reported their statuses, each system confirmed, every protocol double-checked. When the reports concluded, Ellie took a moment to look at them all, these brilliant men and women who had spent decades working by her side. Her voice was steady, solemn, carrying the weight of the years they had shared. "I want you all to know, we wouldn't be here without each and every one of you." She scanned the room, letting her words sink in. "We have carried a massive responsibility on our shoulders, and yet, no matter the setbacks, no matter the obstacles, we have never given up. I'm incredibly proud of all of you. Never doubt that." She paused, drawing in a slow breath before continuing. "We've spent the last 10 years preparing for this moment. We have turned over every stone, accounted for every extreme scenario, tested and retested over and over again. Today, we finally see the results of all that hard work." Her gaze softened. "No matter what happens today, we have done our absolute best. I'm grateful to have been part of this team." The room erupted into applause. Many of them had worked with Ellie for decades, some for most of their lives. They knew her better than almost anyone. She was a genius unlike any other, but more than that, she was a leader, a mentor, a friend. Through the highest triumphs and the darkest failures, she had never wavered, and she had never let them feel alone. Working with her had been the most challenging, rewarding experience of their careers. One by one, members of her team embraced her, sharing a quiet moment of solidarity before she left the lab for the command control room. As Ellie stepped through the doors, all eyes turned to her, and suddenly, a sharp wave of déjà vu hit her like a punch to the chest. She had been here before. 20 years ago, she had stood in this exact spot. She closed her eyes for a brief second, forcing herself to steady her breath. Her fingers curled around the headset. She hesitated. A sudden tightness gripped her chest, an old, familiar pain she had desperately hoped never to feel again. But here they were, once more, standing at the edge of the unknown. She exhaled, placed the headset over her ears, and opened the communication channel. "Command control to Endeavor. All systems are green. Please confirm status on your end." The large screen in front of her flickered to life. A white-haired man appeared, his face lined with age and experience, yet his smile remained the same, that same heavenly, reassuring smile that had always melted her fears away. "Endeavor to command control." Daniel's voice was steady, calm, as if today was just another ordinary day. "All systems green on my side. The sensor drones are in their final stages of their projected trajectory. Endeavor is ready for the ride." Ellie stared at him for a long moment. Then, almost in a whisper, "So, here we are again." Daniel's expression softened. "Yes, we are." His voice was gentle, filled with a quiet understanding. Ellie straightened. Her voice turned firm, serious. "Promise me, at the first sign that the system deviates from the expected perimeters, you will abort the mission. We're not kids anymore. Any excessive pressure could—" Daniel cut her off with that same unwavering certainty that had both frustrated and comforted her for decades. "Ellie, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you all my life." He leaned slightly forward, locking eyes with her through the screen. "I trust you, completely. We have spent 20 years working toward this moment. We have accounted for everything. I have no doubt. We're going to make it." Ellie let out a quiet sigh, shaking her head. "God, you always disarm me with your confidence." Daniel chuckled, his smile teasing. 35 years together, Ellie. I think I figured out how the love of my life works." Ellie rolled her eyes, but she couldn't hide the small, reluctant smile tugging at the corner of her lips. The fact that Daniel was the one piloting the spaceship broke Ellie's heart, but the alternative would have been far worse. Their son Leo had followed in his father's footsteps, becoming the best pilot of their generation. Now 30 years old, he had spent the past decade working tirelessly on the new prototype ships, testing and refining the technology first pioneered by his father. At first, Leo had been the natural choice for this mission. He was young, exceptionally skilled, and had spent years mastering the intricacies of the new propulsion system. But Ellie and Daniel could not accept it. For the first time in their lives, they pulled strings, acting in a selfish way that neither of them had ever dared before. Leo was their greatest pride, their greatest hope, and losing him was a possibility they refused to accept. And so they ensured that it would be Daniel who piloted the ship. For them, it was the lesser pain. The offloading inertial mass quantum drive had been successfully tested 20 years ago, but by the time Daniel's first test flight proved the system viable, Ellie was already looking ahead. She had never stopped questioning, never stopped pushing the boundaries. Even then, she knew there was another level to reach. The existing system worked by extracting energy from the ship's inertial mass and transferring it to an artificial quantum field, which was then automatically destroyed outside the spacecraft to avoid interference with propulsion. The system had achieved humanity's greatest dream. It had enabled generational starships to reach interstellar speeds with minimal fuel consumptions. But Ellie hated waste. The energy extracted from the ship's inertial mass was simply discarded, vanishing into the void, never to be used. And Ellie knew that there had to be another way. A decade after Daniel's first flight, she found it. A theoretical breakthrough, one that would allow the ship to retrieve and reuse the energy instead of letting it vanish into nothingness. For the next 10 years, she and her team worked tirelessly, refining theory into practice. They began safely, with drones running incremental tests, step by step. At first, the results were barely noticeable. Only 1% of the offloaded energy was recovered. But Ellie and her team pushed forward. By the 8th year, they had raised that efficiency to 95%. The implications were unprecedented. With this new technology, the dependency on nuclear fuel dropped dramatically. The enormous helium-3 fuel depots, once deemed an unavoidable necessity, were no longer needed. More space became available. Space for colonists, for scientific equipment, for the tools needed to terraform exoplanets. The numbers spoke for themselves. 70 years ago, a single mission to accelerate a ship to 10% of light speed would have required 1,000 kilograms of helium-3. Now, with Ellie's 2 groundbreaking discoveries, that amount had been reduced to just 0.1 kilograms, a 99.99% reduction in fuel consumption. It was nothing short of a miracle of engineering. Once Ellie's team had achieved 95% efficiency, the decision was made. A new spaceship prototype would be built, one designed to fully test the final evolution of her propulsion system. Construction began immediately. Thanks to decades of advancements in orbital manufacturing, the Lunar Building Station had grown into an efficient powerhouse, capable of assembling a large-scale prototype in just 2 years. The final ship, though only a fraction of the size of a full generational starship, was still massive. Roughly the size of a soccer field, it was designed for more than just testing propulsion technology. It was also meant to collect asteroid materials from the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, and even the Oort cloud in a matter of days. This mission was about more than just speed. It was about ensuring humanity's complete independence from Earth. With these ships, humanity could mine every resource it would ever need, securing raw materials for shipbuilding, colonies, and planetary terraforming efforts. For the first time, true self-sufficiency was within reach. And now, after decades of effort, after a lifetime of pushing forward, Ellie stood on the edge of history once more. One final test. One last leap before the road to stars was fully open. and Daniel Green, the man who had once risked everything to prove humanity could go beyond Earth, was about to do it again one last time. That was part 1 of Chapter 10, The End of the Road, from a story called The Time Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.